Detours. Brought to you by Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. In the 64-year history of the Paralympic Games, no team has ever accomplished what the U.S. team did by winning a third consecutive gold medal in Paris. One of the leaders of Team USA, Brian Bell, has been an integral force on all three of those championship squads. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So, Brian, it's been a heck of a run. Rio, Tokyo, Paris, a 12-year, set of quads that's been just unbelievable. How much basketball can one play, and just how amazing was that run?
Oh, yeah, it was really, really amazing. Just looking back from where it all began, doing that 2013, like kind of beginning of the quad, up until now, it's just been a tremendous journey. From that very first goal all the way up to this third one.
When you reflect over the course of the 64 years, that being the official Paralympics really starting in 88, but all that time, 64 years, do you feel as though the accomplishment of getting three in a row how significant was that in your mind?
It was definitely there in our minds, but we didn't really dwell on it too much. Yeah, it's very cool to make history, but the biggest thing is that we just wanted to win no matter what, and win a gold medal. It's very, very cool and awesome that it had history tied to it, winning three in a row. But our mindset was always just to do our best, play our style of game, and hopefully that should get us the gold medal in the end.
So speaking of playing your own style of game, you had a quote, and it's pretty obvious. You said, after a team wins, they have a bullseye on their back. Well, there's really no doubt about that. What did that feel like going into Paris, knowing that every team was gunning for Team USA? I mean, just getting a win against you, whether you got to the podium or not, would have been very significant. But what's it like to have that bullseye on your back?
Yeah, it's we always welcome the challenge. It never gets easier. We know that after the success we've had in the past, that teams are only going to get hungrier and hungrier to play against us. They're going to give us their best games no matter what. It could be the most up-and-coming new team, but they're going to probably play their best game against us. It just kind of comes with the territory of being on top. Everyone wants to kind of dethrone you a little bit and take that and kind of have that as bragging rights that you beat Team USA.
The other day I had a chance to catch up with Trey, Jennifer, your teammate, and we talked about different roles on a team. A team of five, each one of you has to be able to do something that's specifically very good. Trey embraces being a defender. So when you look at your game specifically, what is it that you bring to the table? What is your skill set?
I would say I'm more kind of like I would say the bridge between like the offensive defensive side. I'm very, very defensive minded with Trey in terms of the defensive side. I love playing defense. I love the feeling of just being able to stop the opponent. But then also, if need be, I can be a more offensive dominant threat as well, depending on whatever lineup I'm in or whatever the team needs in that given moment. And I know that on our kind of starting lineup, we have more offensively minded players. So I feel like I'm more of that kind of like that bridge between the offense and defense, more well balanced.
Well, you look back at the games in Rio, there was if I'm not mistaken, I would say your age was about 23 at the time, correct?
Yeah.
So when you look at the 23-year-old you versus you now, what did you learn and how did you evolve into the game?
Yeah, I would say when I first came onto the team, I was more of a big guy, more diving, more going inside. I would say that evolved with me being more, just more well-rounded, more multi-dimensional player, being more of an outside threat when I need to be. I would say I played majority outside and behind the screen. These games compared to like previous games, I was more behind in the diving for one of my shooters, trying to get them open, or also going inside. And I feel like these games I was more kind of a mix of two, mainly being like an outside scorer.
So when I was looking at a couple of the games, and we don't want to go back through the whole tourney, but just starting with GB, or actually with Canada in the semifinal, You played 38 minutes. You had 31 points and 10 rebounds. And you and Jake Williams, who ended up MVP of the tourney, ended up sharing the floor for that entire period of time. But then I look and I see here you are in the final up against GB, a team that you go up against that they're undefeated. You're undefeated. You guys don't know exactly what to expect. Both of you guys played the entire game, the whole 40 minutes. You scored 20, Jake scored 26 points. You picked up 7 points and 9 rebounds over the course of the game. So was this a design or did Jake just get the hot hand? How did you guys both work together to, be the two big guys in the middle?
I would say that both of us, we know each other really well. We know that he's just a pure scorer and shooter. He's able to kind of create a lot of shots for him. But a lot of teams kind of have seen how we play offensively, and mainly Jake's behind the screen on power side, and then once he gets jumped, I'm mostly on the weak side, and then the ball comes to me for like a wide open shot or me going inside for like an easy layup. But a lot of teams were trying to take away both of those things, taking jumping Jake and also making sure I don't get an easy shot. They kind of showed with me having less scoring. But I was able to get the ball and keep the defense honest, and distribute the ball back to either Steve or Jake for them to get more open shots when needed.
We'd like to take a minute to thank our sponsor, Sports and Spokes Magazine. For nearly 50 years, they've produced stories on iconic athletes performing at the top of their game, given generational coverage of sports dating back to the 1970s, and they've shown the way with exciting and timeless magazine cover shots. To stay on top of all the latest news from the world of high performance adaptive sports, go to sportsandspokes.com. Sports and Spokes, the magazine for wheelchair sports and recreation. So when going into the GB game, you know you're going up against Lee Montgomery, he's got height on you, not a lot, 3 inches, but you also have to make an adjustment there. So what is it that when you go to bed the night before and you're starting to think about the game and how you're going to play the game, do you start to think, I have to box him out better? I need to play closer to him. What are the factors that you have to bring in to accommodate or adjust for a taller player, a taller and bigger guy's a giant?
Yeah. It's just more consistent play. We know that he's really, really big, like you touched on. So as soon as he gets inside the paint, he can literally take as many shots as he wants until he scores. So my kind of mindset beforehand or the night before is just consistently being able to stay in front of him. We know that he works really well with his lower class, usually on the weak side. Sometimes he works power side. But just making sure that we stay in front of him, specifically me or another big guy, stay in front of him, and making sure that we don't lose sight of him, because usually the time that he gets inside is when we look away for a brief moment and he kind of does like a back end move to get inside. And that was kind of my task most of the game, was trying to guard him, because I'm really used to playing against him. And I feel like out of everyone, I play the best defense on him in terms of knowing his tendencies and styles of getting inside. But it was just making sure I stay true to the game plan that the coaches and all the players came up with.
So speaking of coaches, because you brought that up in the Tokyo Games 2020, 2021, you guys go to Rob Taylor and Ron Likens has been your longtime coach. So what were the differences that you experienced between those two coaches, and what did they bring to the table to improve Team USA?
Yeah, it wasn't too much of an adjustment, because Rob Taylor was assistant coach for those 2 years as well. So a lot of the kind of tendencies, kind of focus areas were very similar, but they are different coaching styles. Ron was definitely very more like vocal, in your face, more intense, and I would say Rob was more kind of the middle ground, a little bit more laid back aspect of it, which doesn't, it's not a bad thing. It's just two different styles, but he still, made sure that we are doing the right thing. We had a good game plan going into games. It just, Ron was just a little bit more in your face, intense. And Rob was more kind of laid back, kind of allowing us to kind of dictate and do things at our own pace rather than, having a more structured kind of mentality going into games.
Yeah, which brings up something really interesting that Trey said. He talked about something called flow mentality, and the fact that this team plays perhaps maybe a little bit more of a psychological game. Can you explain flow mentality?
Yeah, it's just, game is a lot of ups and downs, a lot of runs, a lot of kind of lulls. So it's just basically trying to maximize some of those highs and kind of limit some of those lows. And then if you can sustain that throughout the whole game, each quarter, having more highs than the other team, then you should have the win at the end of the game. It's just making sure that we're all on the same page in every facet of what we're doing. It makes the game a lot easier for us in terms of knowing what each other are doing rather than guessing. Because if you don't know what each other are doing on the court, and then all of a sudden one person does some random thing, and then we're kind of all out of sorts. We don't know, what happened, how that person got inside. So it's just a lot of different kind of things that kind of goes into the flow mentality. It's just everyone being on the same page, making sure we maximize our game plan, make sure we maximize our ups, and limiting our downs, to have a more concrete game overall.
Brian, after winning so many of those games as you were going through the tournament, through pool play, through the quarters, into the semis, you were, no knock on any other team or any other country, but a lot of those games were pretty much walkovers. So you go into halftime only up 7 against GB in the gold medal match. Is there concern? Is it calm in the locker room? Are you guys, just discussing what it is that you need to do? Where are you going with only being up 7? I know that sounds crazy. You're up 7, but you're only up 7, and you've had a lot of walkovers. What are you talking about?
Well, we're just mainly talking about just sticking to our game plan. We know that first half we didn't play the best, and we can easily play better. We always look back on some of the smaller detail things that we can improve upon, especially in the middle of the halftime. Making sure that we capitalize on some of those mistakes that we did the first half and limit them so we're better the second half. But we just know that GB is a great team. Just like a little bit over a year ago, we were down by 10 at Worlds to them. So we know they're a really good team. They're very comparable to us. So we know that like even though we're up by 7, it's still going to be a tough fight. It's still going to be we could be playing our best game or even like close to it, and they'll still be right there with us if they're playing well. So we just know that we have to continue the game plan, continue playing our style of game, limit some of their runs, and then we should be fine at the end of the day.
Okay, so you had a really great team nucleus over the course of that 12 years. You had Steve Sirio, Jake Williams, Trey Jennifer, Nate Hines, heck of a good team, and yourself. So here it comes. It's not too early to start talking about Paris 2028. It's not really around the corner, but you have to start thinking about the building of that team. Thoughts about coming back? How much of that nucleus will come back? How many new players are going to have to start to be integrated into this squad?
Yeah, I don't know too much details as of yet. I just know that I talked to the coach after the games and told him that I'm for sure taking like a year or maybe 2 off just to kind of, have more time for the family, maybe spend a little bit more time on the job, making sure that's all in line. And then if I have, more bandwidth, more opportunities to come back, I definitely will, especially if the team needs me to. But I've been, like you touched on, I've been playing nonstop for a long, long time. So it's good to take a break here and there, especially for the family. And then now I'm working full time now. So just trying to, kind of wrap my head around the working full time, making sure that I have a good balance of both family, work, and basketball.
Brian, you certainly bring a calmness to the table. It's certain. I can really see that. Veteran leadership. You've been around for quite some time. I fully expect that there's a whole lot more to come from you, whether you know it or not. I'll bet there's a good chance you're going to be back in 2028. But for right now, you are a 3-time gold medalist. Thank you so much for joining us. Fabulous insights, and hope to catch up with you again really soon.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you for having me.